Well, yeah, because there's a kind of art that is propagandistic in nature that attempts to persuade you of a particular worldview that is actually counter to your lived and empirical experience. And that is very tricky stuff because people who have, I mean, to me, that's it basically it's categorized insanity. You know, it goes under the eye in the bookstore because we call people who reject the lived empirical rational sensual experience, people who reject that, we call them crazy. And there are people whose craziness is so deep and so pervasive that they can't stand to see sane people around them. So what they do is they spew out all of this manipulative stuff designed to disorient and cut people off from the basic lived empirical evidence of their senses. And it's very powerful. You know, crazy people can be extraordinarily convincing because the only way they can survive is to make other people crazy. Otherwise, they get that they're crazy and they have a sort of, I think, personality collapse or mental breakdown or nervous breakdown or whatever you'd want to call it. So they're very insistent in projecting their craziness out into the world. But a lot of what seems to be coming out of the right, or the alt-right in particular these days, is like, to hell with that. Go back to your simple lived sense data experience. What are the actual facts of reality that you have lived and processed, and I am going to reflect those back to you. Now, it happens in memes, and it happens in tweets, and it happens in blog posts. I think it's starting to happen in art. But to me, it is really a pushback against madness, like literal, not just like, oh, it's kind of crazy, but like this insistent, you have to view the world this way, despite the fact that your empirical evidence goes completely against it. That is a very compulsive, there's almost no people more compulsive than crazy people, which is why they tend to win, because they're heavily invested in this manipulated worldview, this craziness. And other people are like, yeah, I'm busy. You know, I can get by without having to project because I'm sane. And that level of insistence, I think what's pushing back now is this, get out of this florid Mobius strip of all this crazy stuff that's been set up and repeatedly hammered into you. Get back to your simple lived experience. And if art can find a way to facilitate that and remind people of the reptile brain, of the senses, without losing, you know, the higher the elevation, the virtue, the hope, the desire for improvement, I think it's really very, very powerful, because it's no longer, when you have that level of perspective and that level of sinking into the base evidence of your senses and what you've actually lived through in life, it's not even like you're an icebreaker anymore. You're sailing through fog, and that is a very powerful thing. And I don't know any particular way to fight back against that, except by the rage and manipulation that exposes the crazy to everyone else, which is what I think is happening now, and discredits the people who deploy that kind of stuff.